All right, let's keep going with this readiness assurance process. So this one is again from chapter 8. The idea here is that there's an event like sales to Olympic events in 2012, and we see this a lot with rock stars with setting their concert ticket prices, etc. But anyway, there's this demand for tickets, and then there's a supply for tickets. If the market were allowed to adjust to disequilibrium, we'd expect a situation where the quantity demanded was greater than the quantity supplied to result in an increase in the market price. But for whatever reason, the sellers, maybe they're interested in equity, they want everybody to have a chance to buy a ticket. They've set a price that they're not going to adjust, and it's below the equilibrium. Well, we'd map that by drawing the price below this market equilibrium price where quantity supplied and quantity demanded are just equal. And notice that quantity demanded is Q1, quantity supplied is Q naught. So there's anytime the quantity demanded is bigger than the quantity supplied. That's a terrible bracket that I'm trying to draw, but anyway, you get the idea. That's what we call excess demand. I'll just call it XD for short. Excess demand, and sometimes we call it a shortage. So of these possibilities, let's see, there will be excess demand in the market. Definitely true. So one is true. Excess supply in the market? No, excess supply happens if we had a price above the equilibrium price, then the quantity supplied would be greater than the quantity demanded, but that's not the case here. So 2 is not correct. Oh, come on. My screencast software is acting up. Some mechanism other than price will ration the good. So that's definitely true. So 1 and 3 is the answer. Let me explain why 3 is true. D is the correct answer. If generally speaking, price rations the good. The people that are willing to pay a price greater than or equal to the market clearing price get the good, and people that aren't willing to pay that price don't. And oftentimes that means rich people get it and poor people don't. That's a common outcome in the market. But when we don't allow the price to ration the good, we have all these people wanting the tickets, but there's only so much room in the stadium. So something else is going to have to determine who gets the tickets, whether it's lottery or sometimes waiting times in line ration the tickets. There's something else that's going to ration the good. Has to, because there's limited amount of goods and more people want it than there are goods. And we're not letting price adjust to the point where quantity supplied is just equal to quantity demanded. That's the price where individual economic agents following their own best interests would drive the market price to, as was demonstrated in chapter 11, and we're going to go through that much over the next couple weeks. Oops. Now let's move on to number 8. Which of the following rents, remember a rent is the amount you earn that's in excess of your reservation option, which of the following rents will not be eliminated by rent-seeking actions of other economic agents in the economy? Innovation rents, where firms make positive economic profits from a new invention. Here we're going to get entry, and that's going to drive those rents down to 0. So that's not going to work. That's not going to persist. Speculative rent, where profits are made by correctly betting on the price changes in a bubble. Turns out that if let's say you think that a good is underpriced, and so a bubble. Let's speculative rent, where profits are made by correctly betting on price changes in a bubble. Bubble is a period where assets are overvalued, and the speculative rent would be you'd sell short. That is to make a contract in the future where you agree to sell at the future's price that's usually quite close to the present day price. anyway, in taking that position, you're agreeing to sell the good, and you have to. The the fact is, the way you make profit on something being overpriced is just buy the stuff low, sell it high, but in doing that, you no, I'm sorry, the way you make a profit on a bubble is to make a a contract to sell at the current price, and let's think about how that works. This happened actually in the movie The Big Short was about this. That they took positions in the futures market that just were betting on the fact that the bonds were overvalued, and the actions they took actually eliminated you basically, if you think something's overvalued, you sell it, but in selling it, you flood the market with supply, and that drives the price down. So those rents disappear. So subletting one's apartment after a demand increase in a rental market that is not subject to rent control policy. Well, if rents rise, if you have an apartment that you don't value as much as somebody else is willing to pay, you can sublet it for a higher price, but realize that people in the market will be responding to that high rent, and in their response building new housing stock that's going to drive the price down. So people responding to that high price is going to drive that profit opportunity from subletting away. Now, employment rent is the one rent that we saw in an earlier chapter that, because worker effort is unobservable and or difficult to observe, and we needed workers to work hard, that we saw that firms in the labor discipline model, firms overpay workers because they want workers to be worried about losing their job. And that's rent that's not going to be bid away. We saw that if there were no unemployment rent, everybody's optimal play would have been to put out zero effort. So anyway, that employment rent does not get bid away by market forces. Let's see what number 9 has for us. This is very much the subject of chapter 8. We are looking at the dynamics of the market in the immediate aftermath of an event that changes the situation. So the current market price and quantity are no longer in equilibrium; they're a disequilibrium. So what will people do? Anyway, so there's this demand for hats. When price is at, say, $8 a hat and quantities at 24,000 hats to start. So then there suddenly hats come into fashion. There's this situation where, if prices stayed the same, sellers would find that their hats would be bought up and would be gone immediately. So what's a seller could do? Now, what's a seller to do? One thing a seller could do would be to charge a higher price for the hats that the seller has on hand. But realize that that's where we started in talking through this case, but the textbook authors pointed out that, you could raise price for the amount you're selling today, but you could also do even better by increasing the amount of hats you offer for sale. And so we'd see both the current makers of hats would raise the price, but also increase the quantity. We don't have page numbers in our core econ text. It's this chapter 8, section 3, I believe, could be 4. I'll give you the exact site in class. I think somebody challenged this question, but it's crystal clear in the explanation in the text that sellers will both increase the price of their inventory and offer more for sale. So the seller will increase the price of hats offered and increase output, as is the right answer. And everybody doing that, by the way, is going to end up moving the market to a new equilibrium. That's the point. The chapter 8 is analyzing the dynamics in a market, how individuals pursuing opportunity for rent will move a competitive market toward a particular equilibrium, or move other types of markets to different situations. I suppose equilibria, not a supply and demand equilibrium, but equilibria of their own nature. All right, last one, this number 10. This is straight off the out of the reading. This is one where hopefully you had it in your notes. Alan Kerman is this researcher that studies the Marseille fish market, and he noticed that loyal customers actually pay more. There was another piece of research that investigated a different market and found that loyal customers paid less. But in this market, the institutional details of this market, the fish market in Marseille, were that loyal customers paid more. And Kerman's analysis, this is described in chapter, which chapter? Might have been the end of chapter, no, it was the beginning of chapter 11. Anyway, Kerman found that there's buyers want a low price, but they also want to make sure that they get their fish. And what Kerman found going on in this fish market is that loyal customers would overpay in good times. When there was a lot of fish, they'd overpay a bit to become the preferred customers of these fish sellers, and they'd go back to the same one, so that fish seller would know. Fishmonger is actually the term they use. Not in our text, but elsewhere. The fish sellers would know that that's their loyal customer, and they'll keep coming back and keep overpaying. So what happened is that in times when the catch wasn't very big, the fish sellers would reserve the fish for the preferred customers. So essentially the loyal customer, the preferred customers, were overpaying a little bit to make sure that they got fish even when there weren't that many fish to go around. So that was the finding that was reported in our reading. So sellers know these loyal customers don't shop around and thus can gouge them. That sounds sort of plausible, but that's not the case that was described in the reading. Buyers lack information about transaction prices, so they don't know that they're being gouged. That again sounds plausible. I intentionally made it plausible, but it doesn't match the facts of the case that we were presented in the reading. Sellers reward their loyal customers by serving their needs first, thus ensuring that loyal customers succeed in obtaining fish in tight markets. And that's exactly the situation described in the reading. So C is the right answer there.